Is it common to get hot cold behavior with SP when manifesting them? Yeah, if you're, well, like initially, think about it this way. Let's get into metaphor land. So let's say you've got a glass of water, and that's your mind. And it's already got, like, it's half filled with water already. That's the old story. Well, we'll say it's Coke. Let's use the old story. We'll use something that's considered to be not necessarily healthy. Okay? And so that's the old story. When you start pouring water into it, what happens? It's a mixture of both. But eventually, if you keep pouring in the water, I'm still holding an imaginary glass. You're gonna, like, it's gonna dilute the old story, but eventually it's going to also reach the rim and start to overflow, and that's what you're going to see into your world, like in your world, a mixture of both. Now, it's impossible to not ever think an opposing thought. It's part of your survival instincts as a human. We've still got very primal brains in that sense. So it's about not panicking and just knowing that when you see bits and pieces of the old story, it's not a big deal. It'll pass, and it doesn't mean that you fucked up your manifestation or you're starting at square one, and it doesn't mean that it'll never change. You know, it's just like, okay, whatever, like, stick to the new story. But also, you know, like I keep saying, a lot of law of assumption teachers will just say, just affirm and persist. Let's not, like, you can do that. Yes, it can work. A lot of people will reach burnout and give up before they get their manifestation if they go about things that way. For some people, they can get to the thing that they want doing it that way. But, like, why would you, if you know you can do it smarter and a more enjoyable way that gets you kind of into the state more easily, why would you go, no, I'm just going to affirm and persist even though I feel shit all the time and I'm burnt out and anxious and blah, blah, blah. So doing nervous system regulation work, self-concept work, I know self-concept is like the buzzword, but I talk about it in a different way. I'm not just saying, say, I am affirmations about like, I'm beautiful, I'm loved, I'm chosen, I'm amazing. I'm not, that's not, to me, self-concept encompasses more of that. It's about getting to a point where you can set boundaries in the physical world without it coming from a place of manipulation or fear that will backfire, right? So if you're in a heightened state, I do not recommend setting the boundaries in the physical world. But in my course that I will be releasing, yes, for those who are new to this, like, I'm really bad at mentioning it. I've probably mentioned it in like 3 lives out of 10 to 15 lives I've done recently. But people have been asking me about it because I did say like months and months ago I was going to do it, and then I got burnt out and stopped working on it for a bit. And also was coming at it from a perfectionist perspective, and it's like, people can get free updates. I can perfect it over time and people can get that stuff for free. But I will be going into how to get to the point of like the boundaries. I will be going through that in the course. So if you're interested in 50% off when that's released, the people who are on the wait list only will get a 50% off code when it's released. Even if it's not something you think you'll be interested in now, when it's released, if by that time you are interested and you weren't on the wait list and you have to pay full price, you'll be kicking yourself. So you may as well just sign up to that through the link on my page. But I'm not going to say that you have to do a course to do self-concept work as well, right? I give you plenty on here to implement, but I feel like a lot of people need a more structured way of going through things, or a laid out thing that they can like revisit whenever they want, or whenever they start to feel like they're going backwards, or whenever they start to manifest something new and realize that their self-concept in relation to that thing might need some work. You know, you'll have access to it forever. So yeah, it is common initially. It's also common if you're going back and forth, if you're reacting a lot to the physical world, if you're not looking after your nervous system like I encourage people to do. Don't wait till you get burnt out. Like I keep saying, so many of you don't even realize you're actually in a heightened state of like anxiety or some sort of opposing feeling because you're so used to being there that it's not until you get burnt out and you have no choice but to take a step back because you're literally fucking exhausted that you then feel some relief from stepping back, and you're like, oh my god, I was fucking anxious. And how do I know that? Because I fucking did it myself. And I'm trying to stop you, like prevent you guys from getting there. It doesn't have to be like that. So even if you think like, oh, I'm just going to affirm and persist because I don't feel like I'm anxious, you might be. Do some nervous system regulation to feel the calmness and see if you feel different. Because it's like, I keep using the analogy of like alcohol, like people who drink a lot, maybe not even necessarily alcoholics, but people who drink a lot often don't realize, and I'm saying this as someone who knows a lot of people who are big drinkers, I'm not personally, and it's not a judgment thing. But they, you know, they always talk about like, oh, I don't even get hangovers. I don't feel that bad when I drink all the time. And then they'll do something like Dry July and they're like, oh my God, I'm a new person. I fucking did feel like shit all that time. I didn't even realize. It's like that. If you're so used to feeling shit, what was the thing I posted on my Instagram? It's like, if you sit in shit for too long, you stop being able to smell it. Or anyone who's familiar with Rotorua in New Zealand, people who live there don't even smell the sulfur anymore because they're so used to it, right? So if your nervous system is in a constant heightened state, you don't often even know that you're in that state until you have no choice but to step away from something. So if you try the nervous system regulation work and you feel calmer, you'll know pretty quickly if that's something that you should continue to implement. There's this girl, lives on the other side of the world, doesn't know you, famous-ish, okay TikTok. Is it possible to make them your feet? Yeah, you can have anything you want. Like, let's use the analogy of, and look, Neil deGrasse Tyson says it's 50-50 chance that we could be in a simulation. But let's, for the sake of, like, I don't have 100% belief on really exactly what this is. But let's use, like, a simulation or a video game as an analogy. But if you can conceive it, it means it's written in the code of the game, right? So if you're playing a video game, you can do anything that's written in the code of the video game. So if it's something you can come up with or come across in the game, you can have it. So, yeah, you absolutely can. What things would you need to do to make it into 3D? Just, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the law of assumption, but Neville Goddard, who's like the most famous teacher of it, he's not the only teacher of it, but the most famous teacher of it, talks about, and that's what I teach, but with like additional things. Like, I call it kind of like, I say they're cheat codes. It's kind of integrative law of assumption, things that I've learned make the process easier, manifest smarter, not harder. But he talks about affirming from the end, or living in the end, or from the end. So what that means is, think of them, whenever you think of them naturally, as like you already being in the situation that you want with them. And don't worry about the how and the when, or the seemingly logical steps to get to that point, because usually the path that leads to your end result is not anything that you could orchestrate or think of or conceive of yourself, right? So when you try to micromanage the middle, yes, you can have all the little steps that you put in the middle, but that might not be the most efficient route. So it's usually better if you can, and what makes it easier is nervous system regulation, doing things that feel good, and self-concept work makes going to the end feel less resistant. But you can always start from manifesting in steps. Just make sure it's not like too detailed, too many layers, too much micromanaging it. And remember as well, like the logical steps to like meeting someone or being in a relationship with someone isn't always a text message. Okay? Because too many of you are putting too much weight on text messages and it fucking shits me. You can bump into people in the street. I've heard stories of people bumping into celebrities in a place that they didn't even know that they were in the world. They didn't even know the celebrity was there. The celebrity just happened to be there, you know, and things like that. So if you decide to manifest in steps because that feels less resistant than thinking about being with them now, do that, but don't narrow it down to something so small, because a text message to me, that's kind of micromanaging territory. Hey, Turia, how's it going? Am I saying that right? So you think you've manifested your ex back? You hang out with your son now. Love that. That's amazing. Just remember, like, once you get the thing that you want, the self-concept work, system regulation, doing things for you, that shouldn't stop, because then you're just going to go back to being the version of you who didn't have those things in the past, right? You're always manifesting and things are always changing unless you hold them in play, whether it's negative or positive. So focusing too much on the 3D is holding the negative in play usually. And focusing on you, making sure your cup's full and that's what's overflowing, what you give to yourself positively is what's overflowing into your world, is how you keep things the way that you want them to be. Connection is good, and then she goes cold when you aren't together. That's okay. You need to persist, and you need to, maybe you're coming from a place of panic that when you're not sitting right next to each other or we're in the exact same place, like maybe you go into wondering like what they're up to and all those things, and you need to stop that, distract yourself, do the things that you enjoy doing, tell yourself the new story, reinforce that. I imagine maybe you're feeling anxious too. So again, nervous system regulation, tapping, I've got a video on that. Speaking of breathing, I need to take a breath. Box breathing. When you start doing breath work, guys, and I used to roll my eyes at this, right? It seemed like even when I considered myself a hippie, breath work seemed like way too hippie for me. And I don't even consider myself a hippie now. And I was just like, I need to try something else. Like at a certain point, I was just like, I need to try something else. And when I was looking for an alternative to full disclosure, it was recommended to me at one point when I got burnt out by just focusing on the thoughts, which is why I tell you guys not to do it. It was recommended to me to take a low dose of an anti-anxiety. And I'm not saying don't take meds or anything like that, right? I don't have anything against them. I know that they can help people. But for me, I was just like, that was a wake-up call where it was like, wow, I need to make a change. This fucking affirming and persisting thing is not it. There's more to it. There's more to it. And that's kind of how I've learned the hard way to teach you guys not to get there. So when I was looking for alternatives, breathwork came up and I was like, okay, I'm going to try this hippy-dippy fucking breathwork thing, whatever. Like, I'll try anything at this point. I'd rather not go and ask for a script for anti-anxieties personally. And it was like a switch. So, and the particular one that I find that I love the most, that had the biggest effect on me. So like box breathing's good. It's good for when you're out and about and you don't want to be doing something obvious. But the Wim Hof guided beginner's breathing, beginner's guided breathing, if you Google or YouTube that, that's my favorite. That's what pulled me out of it. Like, it was like a switch. Yeah, because when you're not feeling anxious, again, like, yes, your thoughts are what manifest, right? It's not your feelings, but you've got to remember that your mind is then sent something to your nervous system that your nervous system then keeps in a loop. And eventually, if you can go without being burnt out, this will rewire this, but most people get and give up before that happens. So what we do here, or what I encourage here, is rewiring them both at the same time. Yes, breathwork, Victoria. Sorry, I only just got to that part of your question. Yes, 100%. When did my manifestation journey start? Some people on here may have already heard this. I'll try to keep it short and concise, short and sweet. So I used to be a hippie. I used to be into all the spiritual stuff, which I initially shunned when I came to understand law of assumption, because I just understand it so much from more of a like neuroscience perspective, and believe that there's definitely a quantum like aspect to it and everything that we don't fully understand. But neuroscience does explain a lot of it. So I was kind of like, oh, like, you know, I started to see it more scientifically than kind of like as a woo-woo thing. But I was introduced to the idea of it, like the seed of conscious manifestation was planted when I was about to turn 21. A friend of a friend was doing graphic design, studying graphic design, and he wanted some experience. And I was like, oh, hey, like, would you mind doing my 21st birthday invitations? And he said, yes. And he ended up buying me a present, which he totally didn't have to do because he was already doing me a free solid, right? Doing my invitations for me. They were really cool, by the way. I was really happy with them. And he bought me The Secret, the book The Secret. And honestly, it didn't click for me. It doesn't give you any like practical instructions or anything, but the seed was planted. And so for years, on and off, I was constantly trying to look into conscious manifestation. And up until recent years, really law of attraction is mostly what comes up when you look it up. And I understand it now. Again, same with like a lot of things under the spiritual umbrella. I can see how they're all trying to teach the same thing. But law of assumption tends to resonate more with like analytical overthinkers or people who may have a tendency, may have like previous trauma that kind of gets them stuck on a loop of, you know, negative thinking. So yeah, for that over 10 years, I was trying to figure it out. And then one day, and I always like to tell you the part where I kept putting it in the too hard basket. And you're never really putting manifestation in the too hard basket because you're actually always manifesting. Conscious manifestation is just choosing your experience instead of experiencing what you're manifesting on a loop of your previous programming. So your childhood, your previous experiences, anything that's kind of affected the way you think about things, see the world, believe what you believe. So yeah, a few years ago, I stumbled across a video on YouTube. I'm pretty sure I wasn't even like actively looking up the law of assumption, but I guess I must have just had a belief that I would like get it at some point. I would understand it at some point. And it like caught my attention in my suggested feed on YouTube. So I watched it and I was like, oh my fucking God. You mean this whole time I've been thinking that I have to feel positive all the time and that it's my feelings that manifest? And it's like, well, how do I switch on a fucking feeling? You know, all the things that really frustrated me, I was like, it's the thoughts. So then I started like putting it into practice, seeing it happen. It worked for a few years, just focusing on the thought side of things, but I did eventually hit a wall and get burnt out. And that's where I kind of learnt the hard way with all the extra things that I teach you guys. And it might sound like a lot of things to incorporate, but it really isn't. It's actually very easy, and it's less exhausting than just focusing on your thoughts. Like, I can't stress that enough. Like, smarter, not harder. It's up to you what you choose to do. I can't make you do anything. But the extra things are not just for me to be like, oh, I need more ideas for content. Because I hear like a lot of manifestation coaches going, oh, if they're talking about anything other than thoughts, they just don't have anything else to talk about anymore. Or they just don't know. I'm like, no, I know. You just haven't hit the wall yet. I have. So I'm going to try and help people not hit the wall, not get depressed or anxious, like really anxious to the point of like barely being able to function in life and being recommended to take meds. If I can help people avoid that, then I'll fucking harp on about it. And people can say what they want. But I will say there's a lot of people that I followed for years that now that I'm talking about the shit, I'm seeing that they're now talking about it. And I'm like, are you watching my shit? Did you always know and you were keeping it to yourself so that people would only get the like stuff that actually makes the process easier when they book in coaching with you? Or are you watching my shit and now you're like taking my ideas? Or is everyone me pushed out? And it shits me a little bit, but then I'm also like, well, I affirm that I'm helping millions of people. I'm helping as many people as possible. And if that's the way it happens, if other teachers learn from me to then teach people how to do it more easily, my stock's finished cooking in my pressure cooker, sorry, then I guess that's part of that manifestation and I have to be okay with that. And I am. But I wish we all knew it sooner, you know, all of us. Because I was listening to them once upon a time and that's kind of how I ended up burnt out. Did that answer your question, A? Because I went off on a huge tangent. So yeah, then I started a podcast first before I ever started coaching. I started the podcast while I was running my other business. And when I realized that I am manifestation was what I actually wanted to do and I wanted to help people and it lined up with the lifestyle I want and all that shit, I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And like I said, I'm teaching it in a way that like I'm seeing so many people who struggled with solely focusing on the thoughts like start to thrive and things flowing. I don't know if Alicia's still on, but she can probably attest to that. So yeah, long journey, and I'm trying to, like, I feel like my mission is like to make that the journey shorter for other people, more easy for other people. Yeah. Phil Hayward, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. Heather Peartree, you've slipped quite a bit in just the last 2 weeks. You've been sick with it that must not be named. That's no good. Just remember, like, in the grand scheme of your life, 2 weeks, not a big deal. One rainy day does not undo a summer. Your life being the summer and the 2 weeks being one rainy day, no big deal. You're never going back to square one. When you take a wrong turn on Google, like according to what Google Maps is telling you to do you have to go right back to the start of your journey? No, don't panic. You just course correct. If you're feeling anxious about it, do some nervous system regulation. If you're feeling up to it, start doing things that feel good. And remember, feel good things don't have to be going out and spending money and doing things. It can be putting on a show that makes you laugh that's unrelated to your manifestation and puts you in a better mindset. You know, like it can be that simple. That's like a bare minimum thing. And then I always encourage, like, put $10 aside every pay and eventually, like, do a splurge thing too. Google free things to do or cheap things to do in your area that could be in line with, like, things you enjoy. Heather Petrie, I always know how to make you feel better. I'm glad. But just remember, guys, like, my job is to get you to a point where you don't have to be on these lives to be made to feel better, right? So make sure you're actually not just listening to what I'm saying in the lives all the time, but you're also implementing the things that I'm saying. Ivan, where am I from? I was born in Australia. I grew up in New Zealand, and I've been back in Oz for almost 15 years. So I've got a bit of a hybrid accent. No worries, Toyos. Need to do some inner soul searching. No, you need to make some decision making and stick to it and do all the cheat codes. My discussions for next time. Okie dokie. Chin up. Put something funny on. If you're still on here and right now before you jump off, go put something on that makes you laugh. Treat yourself to something that you want to eat. Do some breath work, okay? You'll be fine. You've got this. Mary, it does seem like there's so much manifestation content out there that it makes you feel like you're chasing your tail. Yes, that's because a lot of you are watching all the manifestation content. It's going to get overwhelming. And don't forget, like, either people are on here teaching from their own experience, which everyone's experience is obviously different, or there's a lot of people on here who have literally just discovered the law of assumption or manifestation, and because it's told them, usually it's because they're manifesting love themselves, right? And I'm not saying you can't, I'm not shitting on manifesting love, but they've just come across it, it's told them they can manifest the person that they want, and they've started teaching it, and they haven't even put it into practice. And I'm not saying they necessarily have to have like manifested in the love they want, but like they haven't even put it into practice to like manifest things in general. And then they're talking about it. So they're talking about it from a place of like not even knowing what the fuck they're talking about a lot of the time as well. So if you're just following every single person who talks about manifestation, you're going to get overwhelmed, you're going to get confused because a lot of it's going to differ. So my recommendation, and I always say, like, even if this means I don't make the cut, right? It's going to be the better choice for you to narrow down all your resources to like maximum 5. Find who resonates with you the most, who's given practical advice that you've tested and actually have found has helped or made you feel better or whatever, and then stick with them. But also make sure you're implementing the things like that the people you resonate with are saying to do. Molly, your self-concept is great and you've been living in the end for a while. Why is SP not here? Because you're doing self-concept just to get SP. So you're doing self-concept from a place of fear. You probably weren't on earlier when I said this earlier. But if you shouldn't be doing self-concept work just to get the thing you want. You should be doing self-concept work because you want to remember who the fuck you inherently are and have always been before any opposing opinions or limiting beliefs were imposed on you. That created that dam stopping the flow of your manifestations coming through. That should be why you want to do it, because you want to remember who the fuck you are. You want to remember your power. And why is SP not here? If you had SP, would you be asking? So what do you think that's projecting out? You're a living projector? If you're constantly looking for confirmation or proof, or asking why isn't it here, then you're not going to see it. Asking questions is not necessarily a bad thing. There is such a thing as ask-formations or affirmations. Same thing. Where you can put your affirmations in a question format. For some people that helps like minimize the resistance. And how that works with the brain from a neuroscience perspective is when you're asking why you already have something, your mind goes, oh, are they supposed to have that? I better make it happen because they're asking why they already have it, right? Instead of fighting you and saying it's not here, like when you say like I already have, like I have $1 million, and your mind is like, do you, bitch? Are you high? You know, instead of saying that, like, why is it so easy for me to make millions of dollars? And then your brain starts to go, oh shit, we better like manifest her some millions of dollars because she's asking like why it's so easy for her. So Molly, it's good that you might be feeling better about yourself, but in relation to SP, your self-concept story probably needs work, and also coming to self-concept from a place of if I don't do it, I can't have what I want, is going to push it away, is projecting out that you don't have it. Steph TV official. Hello from the Netherlands. Hello. I don't think I've had someone from the Netherlands for a while on my live stream. Always good to have you here. All right. Looks like I'm going to jump off for the night. Thank you all for being here. Don't forget to... Oh, another question. Jay, you snuck in there just last minute, didn't you? So do you agree with a lot of what Neville says if you've ever listened to him? I believe, like, I teach law of assumption in the sense that I believe that it's most consistent thoughts and subconscious beliefs that manifest. But I think in terms, like, they're the seed, right? They start all of the things, but like your body can store things as well and get stuck on a loop, particularly if there's trauma involved or you're an analytical overthinking person, or I have a client who's got OCD and ADHD, like those things. So that's where the nervous system regulation and distracting yourself with feel good things and focusing on you in terms of like what I consider self-concept to be, not just like, yes, it is your story about you and your world and the people in it and you in relation to those things, but I think it also encompasses like how you treat yourself is how other people treat you, not just what you think. So in that sense, I agree with him, but he doesn't really talk, as far as I'm aware. Like, he talks about being in the state or, which, like, to me, the state, being in the feeling of, or the vibrational frequency, like, to me, they're all the same thing pretty much. Like, it's all part of the middle, which is why law of attraction used to shit me, because you can't just switch that stuff on, right? But when you focus on the thoughts, eventually you can get there if you don't get burnt out first. And I think, like I said earlier, not just rewiring here, but rewiring here simultaneously instead of rewiring here and waiting for this to rewire this makes the process more like easier, makes getting into the state more efficient, feels better in general. You're going to think less opposing thoughts if you're not stuck on that nervous system loop that's like started here but then gotten caught in a cycle. Yeah, I don't know if that sorry, I wasn't smirking at you, I was smirking at someone putting something stupid in the feed. Yeah, I don't know if that really answers your question. You're welcome to ask a follow-up question if you want, Jay. I didn't learn law of assumption as well directly from a Neville like text or lecture or anything. I learned like someone's modern interpretation of it. That's what I stumbled across and made it click for me. Because over the years of trying to figure out conscious manifestation and coming more across like Abraham Hicks and Bashar and everything, who I can understand now, but then it felt like was like gibberish to me. I also did stumble across some Neville stuff and it didn't make sense to me. It wasn't until I had a modern interpretation on it. I think it's just maybe his old timely way of speaking that just didn't land for me. But I've listened to some of his stuff since, and yeah, I think like I'm not saying anything that he says was wrong. I just think that there are additional things you can do to make the process easier and more enjoyable, smarter, not harder, Oh, thank you. Nays, I'm not a psychic, I'm a conscious manifestation coach. So if you want to stop pushing away the things that you want by projecting out that you don't have them, which is what is happening when you're asking, you can stay on and learn more or follow me because I'll be jumping off soon. A lot of people just jump off when they hear I'm not a psychic. A couple people recently, when I give that little spiel, go, okay, I'd actually rather manifest the life that I want instead of pushing it away like you probably have been doing for years by checking in with psychics and tarot card readers and things like that. And I say that as someone who used to do it. It's not to ever like shit on people. It's like I was into all that stuff at one point. And as soon as I stopped doing that and started consciously manifesting, all of a sudden things started moving for me. That was a good answer. Thank you very much. You're welcome, Jay. You think Neville does use a very metaphor-based explanation with his stuff, but it's all pretty similar. Yeah. Yeah, and he talks a lot about the Bible being a manual as well. I'm not sure if you were on before, where someone who believes in Jesus and all that sort of thing asked me a question, and I sort of said I think the Bible is a manual for manifestation. I think there's a lot of things that we don't realize are manuals for manifestation, and we've kind of lost the point of them, or they've been interpreted too many times before getting to an English interpretation. Oh, translation, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Okay, guys, I'm going to jump off now. If you haven't already followed, but anything I've said resonates, give a follow, hit the notification bell. I don't always lock in a specific time to jump on lives. I sometimes just jump on at varying times. Jay, yes, most days at the moment I'm jumping on lives. So, like I said, I don't always like lock them in for a specific time. Sometimes I'll just jump on because I try to hit as many time zones as possible. Also, check out the link on my page. There's plenty of free resources and freebies, obviously ways to get coaching with me if you're ready for that. And also the self-concept waitlist. Sign up for that. You'll get a 50% off code when it's released. It's no obligation to buy. But if by then you're ready to purchase, you'll be kicking yourself if you don't have the option to get it at half price. All right, everyone, have an awesome day, night, wherever you are. You're fucking legends. Don't you ever forget, and I'll see you on the next one.